Welcome, dear learners. This lecture on magic as meaningful performance has been developed based on the selected references available. It has been divided into introduction, magic in indigenous societies, magic, cultural anthropology point of view, magic, sociological point of view, the functional aspects of magic, and magico religious practice Kokarai of Kani tribe as an example for the discussion. Shall we now go to the topic? Dear learners, as objectives of this lecture, learners will enable to understand the concept of magic in socio-cultural studies, to make a platform to discuss the various views on magic, also to understand the different views on magic pertaining to as its performance. Magic is difficult to define by itself because it has so many interpretations, plays an important part in many societies and interacts with other things. Magic is a broad term that outsiders, theoretically objective observers, use to describe specific practices in societies where this word or its conceptual equivalent may not even exist. Because of this, different things are put together under the idea that they work the same way. This idea of magic is also made up. It only has meaning in relation to what it is not, mainly faith and science as other ways of making sense of the world. Such meanings of magic favor cultures that put a lot of emphasis on science and make fun of people who use magic instead of religion. So, to define magic and figure out who the performer is, one needs to know how these terms are used in different cultures. No matter how it is called, the idea of magic is used in many cultures to clearly separate certain actions from rites, routines, or practices that might be similar in other ways. Even though the connection between magic and religion and science is not clear, it has its root in the most important institutional, social, and intellectual practices of the modern era. Also, recent attempts to come up with a single meaning of magic show a bias towards the society. In particular, the way people thought about how culture and history changed in the 18th and 19th century made magic different from faith and science. Sir James Fraser from 1854 to 1941, a British anthropologist, came up with a model that says magic is an early stage in human growth that is replaced by religion and then science. Most of the talk about magic in the 20th century was about the link between magic, religion, and science. This can be seen in the fieldwork of anthropologists and the idea of sociologists of religion and the critics of postmodernists. So, in the second half of the 20th century, research in comparative religions, history, and anthropology turned away from the evolutionary model and toward more context sensitive interpretations, while other studies came up with new ways to compare culture. Still, the magic religion science model has a lot of explanatory power, and people often use dichotomies to tell the difference between magic and religion or science. In every magical performance, the following things are vital: using certain methods and techniques, including the employing of chants for some actual tools, strange actions, special outfits, costumes, and ornaments. Different groups have accepted different kinds of magic techniques, such as homeopathy or imitative magic, natural magic, sympathetic magic, frequency magic, resolve power magic, forbidden or negative magic, white magic, and black magic. Modern research on magic has come up with a number of broad theories and definitions. Those theories and definitions usually talk about magic in connection to religion and science, or more often in addition to them. The next we will look into the indigenous societies, particularly on magic. Many anthropologists and other students of a small group of community, which are those in a which effective political power is limited to a village or group of particular village, think that magic is the use of mysterious forces for useful purposes. People say that the ways magic works are extra natural or mysterious, but the goals of magic are natural. The performer, which means the magician, makes different bundles, spells, incantations, or potions that are thought to make real changes in a person, an object, or an event in some strange way. In the simplest societies where people live by hunting and gathering, everyone knows how to do magic, and a shaman is usually an independent specialist and shaman who can be called on for a public religious ceremony. In agrarian societies and other more complicated ones, magicians usually work for individuals, curing sicknesses, making sure an act goes as planned, or changing the way someone else acts. In these societies where people specialize more, magic is often done behind closed doors and sometimes against the general good. At the end of the 19th century, the beginning of the 20th, and some of scientists thought that so-called primitive people mixed up magical and natural causes. Most scientists today think that magician can tell the difference between the two. Magic is used to get nature to do what it is supposed to do, not to replace it. That is, the magician tries to make nature do what he wants to do instead of what it would do on its own. Magician needs this mostly by using metaphors or other magical formulas. The magician may also trick the client into thinking that a poisonous natural substance removed from the client's body is the cause of his illness or whatever supernatural harm has happened to him. In reality, the magician finds the substance through a trick and does not remove it from the client's body, so that nothing is left to chance. Magic can be used to fill in the gaps of natural cause and effect. When natural causes are not known, it may still make sense to use magic. That is, since many real or imagined challenges are out of a person's power, they should at least try something. The next subsegment is magic, the cultural anthropological point of view. According to William Bascom, one of the functions of folklore is that which it plays in validating culture, in justifying its rituals and institutions to those who perform and observe them. Myth is not explanatory but serves as a warrant, a charter, and often even a practical guide to magic ceremony, ritual, and social structure. Bascom further goes on to endorse this view by citing the views of Malinowski in this regard. Myth fulfills in a primitive culture in an indispensable function. It expresses, enhances, and codifies belief. It safeguards and enforces morality. It vouches for the efficiency of ritual and contains practical rules for the guidance of man. Myth is thus a vital ingredient of human civilization. It is not an ideal tale, but a hard worked active force. It is not an intellectual explanation or an artistic imagery, but a pragmatic charter of primitive faith and moral wisdom. This quote taken from Malinowski, work in 1926. The function of myth, briefly, is to strengthen tradition and endow it with a greater value and prestige by tracing it back to a higher, better, more supernatural reality of initial events. Malinowski's statement, writes Bascom, is so widely accepted today that it should not require further discussion. But it is interesting that as the founder of the functionalist schools, this was the only function of, which means the culture, that he recognized, and that in his later works he devotes little attention to culture, particularly on folklore. According to Antti Arne, a scholar in the field of folk tales, who emphasizes in his classification on folk tale, tales are mainly divided into three as follows, like animal tales, ordinary folk tales, and humorous tales. The animal tales are again classified according to the importance given to the animal in the tale. Ordinary folk tales, which is the largest category, is classified as magic tales, miracle tales, religious tales, romantic tales, and foolish tales. When there are tales which have more than one of the above qualities, the tales are classified on the basis of importance given to a specific quality. Coprophilic inclinations, according to Freud, are manifest in folklore, particularly on culture, in magic rituals, tribal customs in religions, cults, and in the art of healing. The notions of collective unconscious and archetype are related to mutually dependent. The collective unconscious is also called objective psyche because it is independent of consciousness and is common to all human beings. To exemplify, Jung gives the example of the most ancient and most universal thought forms of man, let us say the concept of energy and its conservation. The existence of this concept in mankind as a whole can be exemplified because most of the religions are founded on this concept. Every religion believes in the existence of universal magical power, which according to Jung is equivalent to the ideal of soul, spirit, God, health, bodily strength, fertility, magic, influence, power, prestige, medicine, as well as certain states of feeling which are characterized by the release of affects. Myth is not explanatory, Malinowski, he emphasized, but serves as a warrant, as early cited, charter, and often even a practical guide to magic, ceremony, ritual, and social structure. The same myth fulfills primitive culture an indispensable function. It expresses, enhances, and codifies beliefs. It safeguards and enforces morality. It vouches for the efficiency of ritual and contains practical rules for the guidance of man. Myth is thus vital ingredient of human civilization. It is not idle tale but a hard worked active force. It is not an intellectual explanation or an artistic imagery, but a pragmatic charter of primitive faith and moral wisdom. Levi-Strauss formulated his own contrast between magic and religion. Religion is a humanization of natural laws, while magic is a naturalization of human actions, the treatment of certain human actions as if they were an integral part of physical determinism. Levi-Strauss envisages no evolutionary sequence beginning with magic. Magic, religion, and science all shared into one another, and each one has a place in human society. Dear learners, how magic is viewed from cultural anthropological aspect. Now, we also need to have looked into the sociological point of view. Sociologists like Durkheim and Mars widen the discussion by defining magic in terms of its social function. In the elementary forms of religion's life, like Durkheim argued that magical rites involved the manipulation of sacred objects by the magician on behalf of individual clients. The socially cohesive significance of religious rites proper was therefore largely lacking. Durkheim's views were furthered by A. Radcliffe Brown in the Andaman Islanders and to a lesser extent by Malinowski in Argonauts of the Western Pacific and Magic, Science and Religion. Radcliffe Brown posited that the function of magic was to express the social importance of the desired event, while Malinowski regarded magic as directly and essentially concerned with the psychological needs of the individual. Subsequent studies of the working of systems of magic, especially in Africa and Oceania, built upon the work of Malinowski and Radcliffe Brown, along with that of Sir Edwin Evans Pritchard in witchcraft, oracles, and magic among the Azandi. In his seminal book, Evans Pritchard demonstrated that magic is an integral part of religion and culture and is used to explain events that cannot otherwise be understood or controlled. The Zande of South Sudan accept magic together with witchcraft and oracles as a normal part of nature and society. These phenomena form a closed logical system, each part of which buttresses the other and provides a rational system of causation. The next important thing is how the functional aspects of magic is viewed. Malinowski returns to his favorite theme of showing the cultural function of each phenomenon. The function of primitive knowledge is to make the tribals familiar with their surroundings and enable them to use natural resources. It sets them apart from all other living species in the world. The function of religion is to establish mental attitudes, for example, respect for tradition, adjustment with nature, courage and confidence in the struggle for survival and in the event of death. The function of magic is to supply primitive people with a practical way out of difficulties faced by them in their day-to-day pursuit of survival. It provides them with the ability to carry on with life despite inevitable problems. In this way, Malinowski argues the function of magic is to ritualize man's optimism to enhance his faith in the victory of hope over fear. Dear learners, in this lesson, it is very much particular to know about the practical things. I would like to introduce a magico-religious practices practiced by Kani tribe from Tamil Nadu as an example of this lesson. The Kokarai of Kani tribe. Kokarai is an instrument, musical instrument. Kanikas are the tribal people of Kanyakumari district, Tamil Nadu, India. There are 48 Kani settlements in Kanyakumari. Kani tribes learned many skills by keenly observing nature. Ants and dragonflies in forest were their teachers. Those skills found expression in their art, customs, and traditions. But the march of modernity has disrupted the lives of Kanis. Their art forms have nearly vanished. The customs and traditions of the Kani tribes that live in the Western Ghats are unique. They are full of songs and dances. Kanis had songs for birth, good wishes, stories, rain, irrigation, and so on. They knew how to serve up the environment and climate as art. Dance was key part of all their rituals. Their proverbs were teachings, their puzzles untangled life's problems. The girls who come of age, which means technically puberty, refer to as someone who had gathered herself up. A girl who reaches puberty would stay in a big tent on farmland for 7 days. During those 7 days, tribes would sing a song called Tharalipattu when they would take her to the bath. The song would tell the girl about all the changes that would happen to her body. Before weddings, Kanis would sing a song celebrating the acceptance of the marriage proposal. Art was used to express the marriage proposal. The rain gathering song Malai Thirattu Padal was sung for the traditional agriculture. To boost their farm yield, the Kani tribes would sing Satu Padal praying to mountain deities. When singing the song, they would blow on the kokarai, a traditional wind instrument. The music instrument kokarai and healing songs Satupattu are both identified as symbols of community by Kani society. Kani tribes believed that learned to play this instrument from Saint Agathir in the Podihai hills. Kanis believed that the spirit of demons who lived in the past brought good things, means tidings. For that to happen, they had a ghost dance with Payan Tullal. The tribesman who assumed the character of the ghost Payan would roll all around on the ground and raise a cry. Typically, women would perform a ghost dance. Kali Tullal was another dance. Kali stands for God. Kanis would blow the conch, beat and the parai drum. The dance to please God, the dance would bring to mind the trees and plants in the forest. Kanikas, the tribal community of Kanyakumari district, possesses a very good knowledge of plants used for black magic. Most commonly, black magic is practiced to keep off enemies or to destroy them, their families and their possessions like houses, agricultural products, etc. Sometimes they even perform black magic to kill their enemies. Another common black magic trick performed is to attract the opposite sex, and this is commonly known Vasiyam. When an evil spirit possesses a person, he or she is immediately brought to the Pilati who arranges Satupattu. Satupattu is a folk song. While the Satupattu is going on, the person possessed by the evil spirit wears a garland made by the roots of banana and leaves of betel vine. The folk song continues until the evil spirit is driven away. To sum up the lecture, the study of magic as a distinct cultural phenomenon has a long history in anthropological, sociological and historical studies. Although some distinctions between magic and other religious or scientific activities may be used for the magic cannot be studied in isolation as it once was. Practices classified as magic represent essentially in an aspect or reflection of the worldview held by particular people at a particular point in their own historical development. Magic, like religion and science, is thus a part of culture's total worldview. As Fraser pointed out, the magician, like the scientist, assumed that certain actions properly performed would always produce identical results. Religion, on the other hand, emphasized the propitiation and conciliation of higher powers. Dear learners, so far we have discussed overview about magic, magic in indigenous communities, magic cultural anthropological point of view, magic sociological point of view, and then functional aspect of magic, then finally magico religious practice, a kokore of Koni tribe. I hope you all enjoyed this session and it may have enriched your knowledge of religion and magic as a performances. Dear learners, we will meet in another schedule. Thank you.